It's been 10 years since you founded Care Control. Can you tell us about Care Control and how it's developed over the last decade?
Yeah, okay. So it was all started, as you say, 10 years ago. I was an IT guy working out in Birmingham, and I ended up buying a care home from my mum. So it had its origins there. Bought the care home and realized very quickly that really didn't have that skill set to run a care home. Really complicated businesses, needed lots of management experience, but also lots of understanding about the care industry. And when I bought the care home, it was all on paper. Everything was paper-based. I quickly learned about CQC and the regulatory requirements about making sure you keep record keeping to a high standard. And so, yeah, Care Control originated from there, really. It was the fact that I happened to be an IT guy who could kind of do that. And I was a registered manager for a end-of-life dementia home. Meant that those things combined meant that Care Control was kind of born. And I never intended to commercialize it, never intended to sell the product. It really was only developed for that one purpose. And it's just kind of snowballed since then, really. So it's been a hugely exciting journey to be on. I still own a care home. I'm no longer the registered manager. And it's still incredibly important to what we do on a day-to-day basis. But we have a lot of other customers now as well.
And we know your care home is rated outstanding. How has Care Control contributed to that success?
Yeah, I mean, I was registered manager there for 6 years. I understand that it's staffing that really makes a care home tick. But really, Care Control is about being responsive and how quickly we can change our approach to service users' needs really results in an improved outcome for service users. So I'm kind of passionate about the idea that we have to change as care professionals and to adapt ourselves to what the service users' needs are. And really, that's what Care Control does. It's all about kind of alerting you to those changing needs, and the faster we can get that information to the people who are providing the frontline support or the management support, the better the outcome will be for the service user. And that's really the fundamental. So yes, my care home is outstanding rating, which I love saying, and it's great that it is. And it, most of that I would say is down to a great team, and they're super organized. I think Care Control provides that real kind of focus and light on whether we are doing a good job. And that's what the value of it is from my point of view.
And Care Control is used by thousands of care staff across the UK every day. What are the key features of the system?
Well, it's grown, it's massive now. It's a big system now. It's grown a lot over the years. Predominantly it was developed for care recording and rotas, because those are the two main challenges that I came across when I was involved in managing the home. But it's also got medication management now, which is another massive problem for most care organisations. And of course, with COVID, we've had to kind of really double down on some of our other features, such as like friends and family, and the ability for family members to communicate with loved ones in care homes without necessarily being able to visit. So it's really kind of underlined, I think, the kind of breadth of functionality that's within the system. Going back to my previous point, this is really about alerting and notifications and auditing and making sure we're doing these things correctly. And that's really the functionality that I'm passionate about. Of course, it has to do all this other stuff where it has to record everything and make sure that staff members can use it very easily and it's very accessible. But fundamentally, what we're going to do with all this data we're recording, let's do something useful with it and let's improve the standards. That's the key.
And we know you're obviously supporting hundreds of care providers now. The care software market is obviously getting more competitive. How do you ensure that you're ahead of the competition?
Well, I mean, luckily for us, we've got a great community of users. We've got people join Care Control when I was literally, I was turning up in a car and it was in my suitcase. They were very brave at that time, I feel. They were joining, a company that which was just me. There was only me there. but they could recognise that it was built with a lot of passion, a lot of focus to try and do the one thing. And those customers are stuck with us. They've been with us throughout that period of time. We've got hundreds of customers now across the UK, and what that allows us to do is to kind of tap into that community of knowledge, and just try and just keep developing the system all the time. So for us, it is a constant changing process that we're going through in terms of evolving the product, making sure that it's fit for purpose, that it meets the regulatory requirements, that it actually marries up to what the expectation is from our end users. And I think one of our strengths is the ability to listen to what our user base is saying, and to be very fast at adapting the system to that. We have about 6 or 7 updates a year, which I think is a high number of changes, but we do that in a controlled way, and that's really based on that consultation process with our user base. And of course our own observations as well. Because I've still got a care home, we still have the same challenges. I'm still very much in line with all of the same problems that all these other care homes have. So from my point of view, it's hugely advantageous to be able to tap into that and identify where there have been problems. Really good example was when the COVID thing kicked off in March and April. I could see it in my care home. We had to take action. We had to take temperature checks of service users. We had to do hand washing routines. We had to take temperature checks of staff members. Very quickly, we were able to change the system and roll out those features to enable all of our user base to take advantage of it. And that really stems from us being so closely linked to an organisation which is doing this, on a day-to-day basis.
As you mentioned there, Matt, 2020 has obviously been a challenging year for social care. How has it been for care control?
Well, it's been double-edged for myself. I've got this care home that we, have been going through a huge amount of challenges with, and the staff were unbelievable in March and April, and I felt very, very, very protective over what they were having to go through, and what the, some of the government responses, and some of the, perception of maybe a slowness in terms of how quickly everybody was reacting to the situation. And of course, conversely, then we've got care control, who without doubt have had our best year ever. And I'm trying to marry those two things together in my head. And I think a lot of it comes down to the care organisations wanting to get more control, wanting to get more visibility of things, and the ones that are still maybe on paper, or maybe still using systems that are a little bit maybe old-fashioned in terms of how they operate, are recognising that being more in touch with what's going on a day-to-day basis is helpful. And when you've got something like a pandemic going on, where maybe your access to work has been restricted, and you've got to, maybe there's more working from home, there's more working remotely, still being able to be in touch with what's going on within that home environment or organisational environment is crucially important. And I think that's what we've recognised this year. I think it's been unbelievable in terms of the growth that we've seen, and I still haven't got quite the answers to why it's been such a good year, considering all of these huge challenges from a care point of view. I think what has happened recently is the government have been more supportive of care homes. I'm putting my care home owner hat on here, and I think I've seen a better response. I think local authorities have been more responsive, and I think what that means is that there is more support to push organisations in this direction, which I think has been hugely useful from a care control perspective.
And obviously you've had a lot of success, significant success over the first 10 years of the business, Matt. What plans can you share with us for the future?
Well, I mean, for us, we're just growing as quickly as we can do without putting too much pressure on the resources that we have. We're still based in Devon, which is kind of slightly out of the way, but we've got clients across the UK now. We've got some across in other territories as well. I think from our point of view, what we recognise is this is just the start of the process for us. We see a huge amount of opportunity with the 20,000 care organisations throughout the UK. And when we've done our own analysis, within 12 months ago, there was still 40, 50% of care organisations hadn't yet taken a step to move to a more smarter way of working. And for us, that's just a massive opportunity to convince them that this is the most sensible, cost-effective, and efficient way of managing these really complicated organisations. So for us, we're just expanding our team. I think this year we've almost doubled the size of the team, and that's just going to be our kind of modus operandi going forward. Really, it's really about pushing as hard as we can in a measured way to really get people's heads around this idea. This is the only way to operate these organisations. You cannot do this on paper. You've got to move to a smart electronic system, and we believe Care Control is the best system on the market. That's just as simple as it is.
That's great, Matt. Yeah. Thanks for joining us again today. It's been really interesting to learn more about what you do, and we wish you every success for the next 10 years.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lee. And it's great to speak to you again. Take care.
Thanks.